Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. Kevin McCarthy is having a very difficult time wrapping up the Speaker of the House position, and if you look Washington Times, Scalise lurks as McCarthy struggles to lock up House Speaker role. Steve Scalise, waiting in the shadows as Kevin McCarthy struggles in his quest to become Speaker of the House. Now, the good news is their Trump Republicans will have control of the House of Representatives. It won't be Paul Ryan. It won't be Mitt Romney type of Republicans, Liz Cheney or a Kinzinger type of Republicans. There's really not that much a difference between Mitt Romney and, let's say, Chuck Schumer. In terms of foreign policy, there's not much a difference, and that's a fact. That's why it's a moral imperative to vote for Trump or DeSantis. If you oppose never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts and quagmires. If there is a morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat who just heard what I said, it probably was communicated to this person in a frequency they can understand. And so they don't care a foreign policy to people who vote blue, no matter who, is completely irrelevant. You look at what's taking place in Europe. And imagine if that took place under Trump's administration. Imagine the apoplectic, never-ending coverage, blaming Trump for what's it, but nope, nobody takes blame now. Anyway, he could lose to Steve Scalise, which would be a much better option. The odds-on favorite is still Kevin McCarthy. Now, I'm not exactly sure what happens if he loses the first round. So they're going to take a roll call and people are going to choose either McCarthy or Scalise or Andy Biggs. He needs about 5 to 20 Republicans, and Kevin McCarthy should understand that. He cannot do business as usual. He has to impeach Biden, and very likely other people as well. You can't just allow Hunter and Joe to get away with potentially. There's the way Comey, the Honorable James Comey, speaks potential graft felonies. And, again, if a morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat says you can't prove anything, you can prove all more with Hunter, you can prove infinitely more with Hunter and Joe than you can with Trump. The entire American political establishment has been investigating Trump for about 7 years now, since 2015. Haven't found anything that very different from servers with top-secret intel. And then some significant news. I've made videos about Donald Trump, about Ron DeSantis. I've given opinions on what I think their strengths and weaknesses are. And I try to be as honest as possible. But whenever I say something nice about Ron DeSantis, I'm somehow a stooge. I'm unintelligent, I'm dumb. I'm a coward, whatever it is. What am I start to build up and give praise to Donald Trump, and it's a losing strategy. Dumb Ron DeSantis is better this than the other. I can't win either way. But I just want to have an honest conversation. There's merits on both sides. And this back and forth, this Donald Trump versus Ron DeSantis thing feels like what they want. That's the fight that the establishment wants you to have. But at the end of the day, both options are good. That's like somebody presents you $2 million in cash or a $3 million real estate portfolio with a positive cash flow. Those are two good options. You would then have to delve into the financials, understand your standing at bank, what you could do with that $2 million in terms of getting financing, and what the property market looks like. And compare it to the real estate portfolio and understand what's the better option for you at the time. We have the ability to be open and honest when we analyze situations like that. But then when it comes to political candidates, all of a sudden, it becomes divisive and emotional. I just want to be as neutral as possible and analyze both sides. Both options. What is better? What gives you the best chance to win and defeat the left, defeat the unit party establishment, and take on communist nations like China that seek to destroy us? What is the better option? Well, in order to figure that out, you need to have an honest conversation. And that is exactly what I want to continue to do. Today we're going to be looking at an article or a report of Ron DeSantis, his strength in the state of Florida. We'll talk about the pros, the cons, the implications, and of course continue to contrast Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis without saying one is objectively better than the other or picking a side and feeding into the Republican infighting. That's what they want, and that is something I will never do. Alright, folks. So there's a fascinating piece here from the Free Press written by Olivia Rain Gold titled "The Rise of the DeSantis Democrats Like Reagan Democrats." Once upon a time, these voters have already reshaped the political landscape in Florida. Can they do the same nationally in 2024? Miami? It's almost 11 p.m. on a recent Friday night at one gentleman's club, and it's dead except for the girls in their thongs sitting on pleather couches waiting for someone to give a lap dance to. No one can talk to anyone else, it's too loud for that. What with the electric drum, the incessant rapping, the rap is supposed to inspire twerking and tens. Tonight no one's talking. Tori Williams is alone at the bar in fishnets and boots. She should be mixing drinks. Did you vote in the recent election? I write in my notebook and pass it to her. She nods when I asked her who she voted for. A grin appears. DeSantis. She mouths, why DeSantis? Eyeshadow. Williams is a black woman who looks to be pushing 40. She has a fiancé, and after 2 slow years a job. It was her brother, she says, who made her rethink her politics. Finally she shouts back over the bar through the din money. Williams is one of the DeSantis Democrats' Florida voters who until recently identified as Democrats but in November opted to re-elect Republican Governor Ron DeSantis. He who resisted the lockdowns tangled with Disney and governed with a record of budget surplus in a landslide. It's unclear how many dissenters Democrats there are. DeSantis. His vote count jumped from roughly 4 million in 2018 to 4.6. Lots of those voters are presumably independents or Republicans who didn't vote last time, but some are disaffected Democrats alienated from the party they once belonged to. That's evident for the longtime Democratic strongholds that dissent has flipped, including Hillsborough, Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, where DeSantis skyrocketed from a 21-point loss in 2018 to an 11-point win in 2020 to a net gain of more than 30 percentage points. Democratic Palm Beach County Commissioner Dave Herder says he identifies as a DeSantis Democrat, and I can tell you I'm not the only one, as I traveled around the state and throughout my country over the past several years. At first it was quiet. You know, this governor is doing a great job and this is amongst my Democratic colleagues. He told me. Then I started hearing it more, and then I saw in my own county, which has been majority blue throughout probably its entire history. We saw more people vote for the Republican candidate over the Democrat candidate. Kerner is 39, a former cop and a former member of Florida's House of Representatives. He's best known for successfully strangling a bill strongly backed by the National Rifle Association that would have made it harder to prosecute anyone in a stand-your-ground related shooting in 2022. He says he backed DeSantis because he's not anti-cop. And because Kerner says he makes things happen. It wasn't necessarily about partisan identity, but the man himself. Even if you didn't agree with his policies, the way that he was so effective, he says. And so the article goes on. It's extremely long, must be something like 2,000-3,000 words, but you get the point. This is a conversation that must be had. If you're a GOP voter, you're gonna have to make a decision. At one point, if Ron DeSantis decides to run, there's going to be a primary season between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. They're going to go after each other. There's going to be a debate. They're going to present their platforms and present themselves as human beings and politicians, and people are going to have to make a choice. Currently, Donald Trump is winning. Absolutely. But who has the better chance to win the Electoral College in a landslide and usher in a new conservative age that is yet to be seen? And a lot of people are saying it's Ron DeSantis. And the argument being DeSantis Democrats and DeSantis independents. I am constantly praising Donald Trump and my personal opinion, as I would much rather see Donald Trump win than Ron DeSantis. I think Trump has some unfinished business, and I think he's the perfect guy to take on the establishment. But many people argue that Ron DeSantis has a political superpower. And that superpower is similar to what Reagan had, the ability to bring people from across the aisle to his side. Donald Trump doesn't have that power. It's just a fact. Donald Trump is incredibly unpopular with Democrats and independents. We've seen it in normal polling data, exit polling data, focus groups, and we've seen it negatively impact his endorsement in certain purple states. Every politician has a weakness that happens to be Donald Trump's weakness. And if you're unable to acknowledge that, well, then frankly, that's just cope. Now, what's Donald Trump's weakness could potentially be Ron DeSantis, a superpower. He might be able to win independents significantly. He might even be able to start tapping into Democrat voters. Disaffected Democrats might show up to vote for Ron DeSantis, or might register as new Republicans. And what we saw in the state of Florida, and just like the article stated, what has transpired over the last 4 years in Florida could potentially happen nationwide. So there might be a trade-off, or at least there's going to be a discussion that needs to be had. As Ron DeSantis a little bit more of an establishment candidate backed by big money? Absolutely. Is he less raw and unfiltered as Donald Trump? Absolutely. Is the authentic like Donald Trump? He might be, at least it seems as though he is as the governor of Florida, but it still remains in question, at least to a certain extent. There's pros and cons on both sides. The risk was Donald Trump is alienating particular voting groups. And just the general wildcard element of anything can happen at any time. You know, it's less of a controlled political image. And the downside with Ron DeSantis is really, can he be trusted? Is he in the Mitch McConnell pocket? Is he going to be authentic after being elected? These are two concepts which are going to have to be analyzed. We're going to have to see an honest conversation, a rugged debate between the two. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be infighting. It shouldn't be one versus the other. It shouldn't be I'm voting for this candidate. And if this candidate doesn't win the primary, that I'm not going to show up to vote and I'm actively sabotage Republican chances in the general. It's a totally false dichotomy. Both options are amazing. The question is, who stands the better chance at winning after 2 election losses? Who gives you the best chance of kicking Sleepy Joe out of office and ushering in a brand new conservative age? It could be Trump, it could be DeSantis. But at the end of the day, you can't ignore the fact that Ron DeSantis might have an electoral superpower. The guy really is an electoral juggernaut, as we've seen, as he's proven to the world. And if that translates to the national stage in the general election, you're talking about 8 straight solid years with America's governor becoming America's president. And that, to me, does not seem like a loss. Quite the contrary. I guess in conclusion, Donald Trump remains my favorite, but I would take either, and at the end of the day, based on the data and based on all the facts, I think the decision needs to be made once we have that data, who stands the best chance at winning. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button to watch the next episode.